seatbelts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, producer John not going to be with us this weekend. He says next weekend. All right. Welcome into television sports live coverage. That's what's going on with him. But it's a good thing that we're actually starting a little bit early this week because, hey, in case you hadn't noticed, it's been 3 weeks since we did a show on Saturday. I hope you've been checking out our midweek podcast, Crossed Flags, as we were able to do those, but now we get into some detail here. For those who haven't checked out the podcast, let's give you a little bit of what's going on. We're going to touch on some of the same topics, probably not go as much in depth. We'll just refer you back to the podcast so that you can get those details. But in addition, we got silly season in Formula One getting amped up big time, potentially pointing to the demise of the Red Bull empire. Got a lot of IndyCar news, including major penalties, charter plans for IndyCar coming up. How's the Indy 500 schedule going to affect Kyle Larson and his Cup Series racing? Plus a milestone reached in the NHRA, and we'll talk Nashville Fairgrounds.
For more on the Championship Racing Network. Racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, we screwed him up in qualifying. Good morning. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson.
Hello.
As I mentioned, producer John not able to join us this weekend. Promises he'll be back with us next weekend. Hope everything is going well. Wow. Been a busy couple of weeks. Talladega, Barber.
That and the dreaded pollen of death floating
yeah.
around Alabama. It's been interesting 3 weeks.
Yeah, and the funny thing is it really hasn't affected me that badly, but as I get older, it's really starting to affect me more. You might hear it in my voice. I still haven't recovered from 2 weekends on PA and mowing the yard and kicking up all that pollen.
Oh, I'm going to say this in full confidence. If there would have been a show 2 weeks ago, you'd have been flying solo because I had no voice. None. It was gone.
Well, we're back.
Yep.
Thank you for being patient with us and keeping with us. We do appreciate it. And again, want to remind you about that Cross Flags podcast. It comes down every Wednesday. So about by 6 o'clock, easy, generally earlier, but by 6 o'clock, easy. You're going to have it up there on CRN Live on YouTube.
Sometimes by 4.
Yeah, sometimes earlier. So, it's generally up there Wednesday, Thursday at the latest. So, yeah, please go and check that out. And since it's been that long since we updated it, we could go into detail and recap races, but no, I'm not really going to do it. I'm just going to get you set up for this weekend by giving you the points rundowns, okay? Start with NASCAR in the Cup Series. Denny Hamlin, William Byron, 3 wins each. They are locked into the playoffs along with single-time winners Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, and Daniel Suarez. Those who are in on points right now are Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe, Joey Logano, Chris Buescher. Buescher with a slim 2-point lead over Bubba Wallace for that final playoff position. Anything in there surprising you? Anything in there saying this guy probably ain't going to be there when we get to the playoffs?
The only one I could really say that to I'm not going to really say it's going to happen, but I could put a question mark beside would be Buescher.
Okay.
The other ones are not very surprising.
Well, and I'll say this. There's one guy who is surprising me, and it's only because of that penalty that he got earlier this year. But Noah Gragson not being in there, considering what he's been able to do over the last, 3-4 weeks.
If that hadn't happened, he'd be inside. He's firmly inside of top 12, I would say.
But otherwise, the lack of performance from the Fords has me looking at Briscoe, Logano, Buescher, and wondering what's going to happen. And I say lack of performance. It's lack of wins. It's not really lack of performance because we see them in the top 10.
It's not just across Cup either.
That's true. Yeah, they haven't claimed to win in any of the top 3 divisions.
None whatsoever.
But, again, it's not really truly lack of performance. It's just lack of parking the car in victory lane.
Right. If Riley Herbst hadn't made a boneheaded move at Talladega, they probably could have had one in Xfinity.
Yeah, probably so. Speaking of Xfinity, 12 playoff positions there. Standings led by 2-time winners Chandler Smith and Austin Hill. Single-time winners are Jesse Love and Sam Mayer. In on points, Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier, the aforementioned Riley Herbst. A.J. Allmendinger, Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman, Anthony Alfredo, and Sammy Smith. Smith with a 15-point advantage on Brandon Jones for 12th place. Anthony Alfredo is a little bit of a surprise there, but otherwise not really a big shock.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, otherwise, things pretty much as I would have expected there.
It's business as usual right there.
Craftsman Truck Series, 10 playoff positions. Christian Eckes leading the way with 2 wins. Also in with a win each. Corey Heim, Nick Sanchez, Rajah Caruth. I mean, congratulations to Rajah Caruth, but that was seemingly an outlier now because I haven't seen the same performance out of that truck since.
Yeah, he struggled on the road courses and short tracks, but with today's race at Kansas coming up later on this afternoon, he'll probably be back on the scene.
Get back into form.
Yep.
Those in on points, Ty Majeski, Taylor Gray, Tyler Ankrum, Matt Crafton, Tanner Gray, Grant Enfinger with a 5-point lead over Daniel Dye for that final playoff spot. The rise of the Grays, I think, is a little bit surprising, but then you look at the team they're driving for, which is Tricon, and it probably actually shouldn't be that big of a surprise.
To me, it's really not, but Tanner Gray letting your little brother come in and just
smoke you,
pull away like that, and you've been there a couple years longer.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Shots fired right across the bow.
Sound the siren.
Following Alabama Speed Weeks here, as we call it on CRN, IndyCar standings now have Colton Herta on top by a single point over Will Power. Alex Palou is 3 back. Scott Dixon trailing by 7. Felix Rosenquist 14 behind. Pato Award 30 down. Kyle Kirkwood 34 out. 39 back. Linus Lundqvist. Scott McLaughlin 42 back. And Intent Santino Ferrucci 43 points out. Scott McLaughlin's got to win, right?
Wrong.
That's at Barber. Okay.
Only at Barber. Yeah.
He had a third-place finish. Had a third-place finish at the season opener in St. Petersburg. Had. He and his Team Penske teammate, Joseph Newgarden, who you might note, despite the fact that he actually did cross the finish line first at St. Petersburg, ain't listed in the top 10. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. I know this is going to shock our long-term listeners here and CRN Live viewers, but Max Verstappen leads Formula One points, 110-85 over his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc is third, 76-69 for Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris, 58, 38 for Oscar Piastri. George Russell, 33, 31 for Fernando Alonso. Sir Lewis Hamilton, 19, 9th in points right now with 19 compared to 110 for your points leader.
And Miami ain't looking so good so far.
No. 9 for Lance Stroll to finish out your top 10. That is 2 points up on Yuki Tsunoda as they head down to Miami. What he's referencing is they did sprint qualifying because Miami's one of the 6 sprint races that they're going to have throughout the course of the year. So they did sprint qualifying yesterday. Neither of the Mercedes made Q3 in sprint qualifying.
First sprint is in 2 hours and 51 minutes. So
shortly after we're done here.
Yeah. About an hour after. Yeah.
Red Bull pulling out to a 195 to 151 point lead over Ferrari in the Constructors' Cup standings. Then you got McLaren in third with 96. Mercedes is just stumbling out of the gate, fourth with only 52. Aston Martin's got 47 for VCarb, the other Red Bull team. Haas F1 with 5, which normally would not be great, but considering what Haas F1 has been over the last, 3-4 years, it's actually not bad. 3 teams roll on without a point on the year so far, Williams, Alpine, and Sauber, and there is a rumor out there that Williams has asked for a special dispensation from Formula One and the FIA to allow a kid who has yet to turn 18, he'll turn 18 in late August, to be able to come in and drive, which means Logan Sargent, you are on notice.
That doesn't have the accrued super license points yet.
Actually, he does. He does. He's just barely at 40. He's barely at 40.
I'd say I thought he didn't have it.
Yeah, the dispensation is for the age because he does have has the needed super license point, and he's not 18 yet. Well, this kid's been tearing it up.
I thought I seen somewhere he was like 9th in one of his series points, and somebody said like, you're 9th in points, and you're like, oh, here you go.
I'll put it this way: Racer.com is reporting he's got the needed super license points. I'll put it that way. We'll see. To Formula E, Pascal Wehrlein leads the way with 102 points to 95 over Nick Cassidy. Jake Dennis sits third with 89, 88 for Oliver Rowland. Mitch Evans is fifth, holding 77. Jaguar holds the lead in the team standings with a hefty 172 to 128 point lead over Tag Heuer Porsche. 113 for Andretti, 112 for Nissan, 102 for DS Penske, Maserati 67, 63 for McLaren, Envision 41, 23 for ERT. You got ABT or Abt Cupra with 19, and sitting with a big old goose egg on the season to date, Mahindra. And they are a power unit supplier in Formula E. That's not a good thing at all. And that brings us to the NHRA, where in Top Fuel, your top 5, Justin Ashley, 96 up on Doug Coletta, 106 over Sean Langdon. Steve Torrance, 139 down. Billy Torrance, 168 back. Austin Prock with a 17-point lead over J.R. Todd and Funny Car. Then it's Matt Hagan, 32 back. Bob Tasca, the third, 69 back. And 70 back is John Force, the ever-present. Greg Anderson leading Pro Stock Car by 25 over Erica Enders. Dallas Glenn's 26 behind. 109 out is Jed Coughlin Jr. Aaron Stanfield sits 160 behind. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle, it's led by Gage Herrera. Color us all not shocked.
Touching back with F1 stuff. There's something I seen this morning.
Okay, hang on. Let's round this thing up.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, let's round this out. Gage Herrera up 89 on Matt Smith. 97 out, Ellie Tonglet. John Hall, 104 out. Angie Smith, 124. All right. So this weekend's slate of racing is actually somewhat limited. You got Craftsman Truck Series heading out to Kansas. They're going to run the Heart of America 200. That'll air on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio beginning 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. You mentioned the sprint race for Formula One. That's going to be, I believe, on ESPN. about an hour after we're done.
Correct.
So we'll call that 11 Eastern. No, 12 Eastern,
12 Eastern
11
Central.
Central. There you go. Sunday, 2 events starting at the same time. We'll go with the one that's likely to end first. Formula One. They're here in the U.S. They're going to run the Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix on the so-called Miami International Autodrome. It's a 19-turn, 3.2-mile-long course that's carved out of the Hard Rock Stadium parking lot. It'll air on ABC starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time.
Better known as Dolphins Raceway.
Yeah. Tell you what, let's get to the other event, and then we're gonna run down the concessions menu for you. At the same time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time, Cup Series gets things rolling on Kansas Speedway for the Advent Health 400. Fox Sports 1 MRN Radio going to have the coverage on that one again, starting at the exact same time, but probably ending later. Let's just be real. So that means Xfinity Series, IndyCar, Formula E, NHRA, all those major series that we cover on a weekly basis, they're all on. So we've talked about the price of tickets to a Formula One race here in the United States. Doesn't matter whether it's COTA, Miami, or the newest one in Las Vegas. And they're not cheap. I mean, you're talking 4 figures for a ticket. And that's minimum. That's like, quote unquote, worst seat in the house. Yeah. You know, you get best seat in the house, like near start finish line, you could be talking easy 5 figures.
Which that could be expected if you got a seat that close.
Sure. You're easy talking 5 figures, probably with a high 1, if not a low 2 at the beginning.
Right.
For a ticket.
Right.
So keep that in mind when you hear how much it's going to cost for you to get some things at the concession stand, Matt.
At the Hard Rock Beach Club at the Miami International Autodrome. Let's go to the side of the beach club with the fake water and the boats that are just sitting on a lift, look like they're sitting in water.
Sure.
That's probably the beach club. Anyways, the bites menu, which would basically be like appetizers. I'd say appetizers. You know, if any of our fine friends here listening and viewing us on YouTube would like any Maine lobster rolls,
oh God,
that's going to cost you a crisp $280. $280
for what's probably
something probably about that big.
I was about to say about that big, around maybe 6 inches long, if you're lucky.
Maybe.
If you're lucky.
Well, let's just that's the chilled bites. Let's go to the warmed bites.
Oh, sure. You know, stick them out in the sun.
Yeah, the F1 platter, which is A1A sliders, secret sauce, ribeye quesadilla, crispy chicken tenders, honey mustard, and chipotle sauce. A clean, crisp $210.
Well, it's actually cheaper than the lobster.
Carne asada nacho, a simple plate of carne asada nachos.
This is chips and some steak strips.
Creamy salsa verde, salsa mexicana, cotija cheese, pickled onions and cheese sauce. A crisp $180
for nachos.
Yeah. So let's take a gander at the drink menu, shall we?
Oh, sure.
Okay. We're gonna start at the easy stuff. The five per buckets drinks, some drinks in a bucket. There are 5 per bucket. You know, if anybody that would like a 16-ounce Heineken, $60 for 5.
That's $12 a beer.
If you want to go,
which is actually, when you stop and think about it, not all that far off of a whole lot of stadiums.
That's true. Very true. If you want to go the Miller Lite route, $55.
So that's $11 a bottle.
Yep.
Again, not all that bad when it comes to comparing stadiums. Is it ridiculous for a bottle? Yes, but it's typical for stadiums' concession stands.
Oh, would we like to really define ridiculous for a bottle?
Let's do it.
Let's just touch on the champagne real quick first.
Yes, you can get champagne at the F1 race.
Champagne, yeah. Dom Perignon Rose Luminous.
Bless you.
$1,800.
1800,
yeah.
For a bottle. Don't shake it.
Let's
see.
Armand de Brignac Rose, the Ace of Spades, $3,600.
Hey, Motorhead's doing really well with
the
champagne side of things. Right?
Oh, let's just trek off down here to the bottles and the hard liquor. The hard liquor. And we're going to end it on the highest one.
Let's do it.
Let's see. The Tito's vodka. If you want a simple Tito's vodka bottle, $560. And within the whiskeys, your basic Crown Royal and Jack Daniels.
Now, I'll admit, I'm a Crown guy. I like a Crown and Coke.
$560 a bottle.
I don't like one that much.
Jack Daniels Sinatra Select.
Sinatra Select.
$1,300.
Well, you put the name Sinatra on it, of course.
Let's just venture over here to the side and close this out and end this first segment on a high note. No pun intended. Como's Extra Anejo Tequila. $4,800 a bottle.
That thing better open itself up and pour itself and then lift the cup up and pour it down my throat for me.
And last but not least, Clase Azul Ultra. $12,000 for a bottle. You know where I'm going when I get there? Back on the airplane and coming home.
Certainly ain't eating or drinking at the track.
Jeez almighty.
Oof. Good luck, folks.
Jeez.
Good luck. You want to know how much it costs to go to an F1 race? Now you know.
And there you are.
When we come back, we'll mention this, and we'll put some detail to it because if you didn't check out the podcast, you don't necessarily know all of the details here. But I will tell you this. Podcasts over the last couple of weeks, very, very important here because, again, we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail about stuff that we've already talked about on the podcast. But, yeah, because it hasn't been, it's been a little bit, we'll go ahead and mention them, starting with IndyCar next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Sylacauga Marine is primed to make 2024 the best year.
Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
We appreciate you checking us out. And by the way, I gave you a rundown of the series that we cover on CRN Live on YouTube. We have a listener who is overseas, in Greece specifically, who runs down all kinds of racing series that are racing all around the world this weekend.
Yep.
And noticed one, and I was kind of unfamiliar with this particular series until they raced last weekend at Barber. It's called Radical Cup.
I was unfamiliar with it too. Once I saw it, I was like, holy jeez.
Those things are cool.
They are. They're very cool.
Very cool
Very
cars.
cool cars.
So, and they race all around the world. There's Radical Cup North America. She mentioned Radical Cup Scandinavia. There were a couple of different ones running last weekend that were in the Middle East, I think. That their local announcer, anyway, was talking about.
It was crazy.
It was fun stuff. For those of you that were sharp-eyed on social media, noticing our post, whether it was on Facebook or Twitter/X, Twix, I mentioned the fact that we're going to have a special guest. A friend of mine from a long time here in Birmingham area in radio named Matt Murphy recently moved up to Nashville to a Nashville talk station, and since then he's become pretty well involved in things going on with Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. So we're going to talk to him about that. Plus, we're going to talk to him about one thing that happened in Formula One that we're going to tease coming up when we get into F1 news. But first, let's talk some IndyCar here, because really over the last couple of weeks since we last talked to you, likely the biggest news did come out of IndyCar. It is where, upon further review, the winner that you thought was the winner in the season opener in St. Petersburg turned out to not be said winner. IndyCar looked over the push-to-pass data from the season opener, determined that two cars, those of winner Joseph Newgarden and third-place finisher Scott McLaughlin, both driving for Team Penske, went over their allotted push-to-pass time. You might say, how? Well, we'll get back to that. Both Newgarden and McLaughlin become the first drivers in 29 years to be disqualified by IndyCar. Also announced that another Team Penske driver, Will Power, going to be docked 10 points. But they didn't actually accuse him of any wrongdoing, nor did they explain why they were docking him. They didn't state that he had gone over his push-to-pass. I guess it's just guilt by association.
I guess so.
Either way, the Friday before the race at Barber Motorsports Park, Newgarden met with media. He was apologetic. He accepted blame for the mistake, called it an embarrassment, said he might have a long road back in regaining the respect of his fellow drivers. And we get that. We saw some of that, we think, based upon the performance that we saw at Barber, because Scott McLaughlin was the class of the field, and Joseph Newgarden wasn't that slow. He was able to keep pace, but for some reason, instead of being up front all day, he was mid-pack.
It's something that I said on the podcast Wednesday. To me, the way the Team Penske drivers drove at Barber after this happened last week, Scott McLaughlin didn't care. No. He drove. He was gone.
He's not worried about it.
He didn't care.
He's not trying to suck up to his fellow competitors.
Will Power didn't care.
Nah.
They drove. I mean, they started 1-2 respectively. He didn't care.
No.
Joseph Newgarden in practice Friday and Saturday had good speed. He had top 5, top 4 speed. Mm-hmm. But he stayed mid-pack the whole race.
All race.
He was if that's not a clear-cut definition of on-purpose sandbagging, I want to go with you to go play the lottery. However you want to put it. Because he was sandbagging. He was holding back on purpose. Because if he had got up there and Penske would have finished 1, 2, 3 again, those questions would have gotten a lot louder, and those flags on those flagpoles would have gotten an awful lot higher.
Oh, yeah. Team Penske released a statement that we'll show you on CRN Live on YouTube as well. They said it was on them that they had inadvertently left a test session push-to-pass system on the cars for the St. Petersburg race, and that allowed an unlimited amount of usage to the system as opposed to limiting it to about the 200 seconds that are generally allotted to any driver for any particular IndyCar race. IndyCar president Jay Fry said that the series would take steps to keep it from happening again, added that they will lock a logging unit onto each and every car right after qualifying, and that'll block teams from being able to change the system. Added this, quote, "It is very hard to police intent or evaluate intent. So at the end of the day, it's about data. That's on us. We didn't catch it at St. Pete. We put mechanisms in place that we think should prevent it from happening again." And we're not going to belabor the point, but I'm going to get to this because
I've got a theory on this too.
You know, you being a driver of your own car, I mean, sometimes you do something I mean, I do this all the time. I'll walk into a room thinking I'm going to do something. I'll see something else, do that, and then go, wait a minute, why did I first come in here? Could you feasibly do something to the car, turn around, go do something else, and forgot that you needed to go back and change A after you've done B?
It could happen.
And I'm not trying to make an excuse for Team Penske. I'm just saying we're all human here. Okay, they left the preseason testing can use push to pass at any time system on the car, but that's one of those things that you should go back in through and say, check, did we put the right system on the car for the regular season? And somebody wasn't doing that.
Yes, it's called your basic checklist. Because every single week that my car would hit the racetrack, no matter where I would go to, whether it be a larger track or a shorter track. Let's define them that way because you've got dirt tracks that are different sizes.
Sure. That
require different setups and mechanisms that you put on your car. All right. This is part A of this, and part B is going to be my theory on this right here. I thought about this on the way home from after doing the podcast on Wednesday. All right. You have your checklist where you do simple bolt checks all the way down to checking, making sure the correct gear is in the car, because you don't want to roll out onto a big track and you have your short track gear in the car because you're going to be picking up pistons and rods all over the racetrack.
That ain't going to work.
That ain't going to work. All right. But to my theory on this here, and this is going to make too much sense here. The actual car's computer, let's define it as the computer system that has all of the electronics on it, is in one thing. That's going to be the steering wheel. Something tells me, and Team Penske owned it.
They did. Yeah, if you look at that statement, look specifically at that second paragraph.
Somebody they've got multiple wheels for these cars.
And they should be color-coded or something. There should be something on the wheel that says practice.
We watched them come out with a different wheel, and before the race started, they swapped wheels out on Colton Herta's car.
Yeah.
Somebody give them the wrong steering wheel before the race that had the test data programmed into it.
Yeah. So it's on them.
That's happened.
It is on them. I mean, you can sit there and you can make excuses from now until the cows and the cars come home. But in the end, somebody screwed up.
Yeah, it was
be it intentional or be it unintentional, it's a screw up.
I mean, it's like Jay Frost said, it's hard to police intent or evaluate intent because you don't know if there was any intent.
Exactly.
So it's just own it and move it on.
And in case you forgot, the owner of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series is Penske Entertainment. And remember, we're talking about Team Penske. Yep. Mark Miles, who's the CEO of IndyCar and the series owner, Penske Entertainment, insists there's no conflict of interest. He said, quote, "What was really important to us was that there was never any question of any interference. We could be objective and handle the data in the same way that we would have handled it for any other team." He added that they discovered the situation, IndyCar officials did, at a practice session before the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach when a glitch knocked out the ability for IndyCar to clear the system. Because IndyCar has that basic on-off switch that says, okay, now you can use push to pass. When we turn it off, you can't use it. When we turn it on, you can.
So technically, as a double-edged sword, they're both at fault.
Yeah. So IndyCar tried to go, okay, pre-race testing, let's let you use it now, and told the teams, now you can use it. And every team that tried to use it suddenly reported they can't, except for one, Team Penske, who could. Oops.
You can't. That's weird that they had a bypass. You know.
Series ordered the team to correct the issue before the race, then went into review mode and discovered what happened during the season opener. So your new winner for St. Petersburg is Pato O'Ward. Will Power still credited with second place. Colton Herta moves up to third. Alex Palou fourth. Felix Rosenquist in fifth. Newgarden is credited with 26th place. Scott McLaughlin 27th and last. Newgarden, just because this is the way that the IndyCar points rules are, Newgarden actually does score one championship point. McLaughlin, none for 26th and 27th. The other big news that we noted, David Malukas, we talked about this because it happened during preseason, and he's been sitting out. He's been trying to recover from an injury that he suffered before the season, broke a bone in his left hand during a mountain biking accident before we got to St. Petersburg. He missed the season so far. Right after the weekend at Barber Motorsports Park, Arrow McLaren Racing announced they were invoking a clause in his contract, choosing to release him before he ever actually raced for them. The 22-year-old Malukas has been rehabbing the injury, but he missed out on the 4 races run so far. The points races in St. Petersburg, Long Beach, and Barber, along with the $1 Million Challenge event at Thermal Club. And due to that, it invoked a clause that stated if he missed 4 races, he could be released from the team.
See, that's garbage that you're counting an all-star non-points event.
Well, and here's my question.
I mean, that's garbage.
You know, there used to be the old phrase, not necessarily in racing, but that, you know, if you don't lose your starting spot because of an injury. And I realize that that's a baseball, football, basketball, hockey kind of a basic thing, but we really kind of thought that was an unwritten rule in racing too. And we went much more in depth in this, and I'm just going to ask this question here.
Yeah.
Real quick. Well, we went much more in depth with it. This is episode 9 of the podcast, done just this past week. Look it up. But this is the guy that Arrow McLaren went out and liked so much that within days, not weeks, within days, because remember, 2023 season ended in September. Mm-hmm. And by the end of September, Arrow McLaren Racing had signed David Malukas for 2023 or 2024. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, wasted no time.
Yep.
But somehow decided they needed to put in a clause in there that said if you miss 4 races, apparently for any reason whatsoever, we can kick you out. And they chose to invoke it without ever actually seeing him behind the wheel, except in preseason testing. I'm sorry, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when you really don't have a set situation in place. You've got 2 drivers who have driven for you so far this year in Callum Ilott and Teo Porcher. Neither one of those drivers can fill out the rest of the year because knowing they were going to be part-time going into this year,
right,
they made other obligations that will keep them from being able to run all of the races in IndyCar this year.
Correct.
So they're going to have to go piecemeal Callum Ilott, Teo Porcher, or come up with a 3rd driver maybe. This seems somewhat short-sighted on the part of Zach Brown and the guys at Arrow McLaren.
It's completely short-sighted because now I could see if it was a situation you missed 4 races and you're medically cleared to drive.
Sure.
He's not medically cleared.
No.
He has done and is doing everything that is required and needed to be done for his rehab purposes from his injury, his wrist injury.
And it's just not responding the way that it was supposed to.
Everybody heals differently.
It's true.
I mean, we can...
All right. Well, let's take Eric Jones. Let's take Eric Jones because this word came out. In case you missed it, Eric Jones suffered a lower back disc compression fracture injury because of a crash late in the race at Talladega. Mm-hmm. He missed last weekend at Dover. We thought he would maybe miss 6, maybe more weeks. Turns out he got cleared by doctors, could race this weekend at Kansas. Legacy Motor Club says, we'll let him rest 1 more week, then we'll put him in the car at Darlington where he's had success.
Good move on their part.
Okay. That's a compression fracture of a disc in your lower back.
Yep.
You'd think that would take longer than a wrist injury. But again, like you said, different people.
Yeah, well, let's knock on wood here. Hope we never have to deal with injuries at the same time. But say if a freak accident happened and we're leaving and walking out of a racetrack and both of us slip and fall and I have an ACL tear in our knee. Okay. It may take him. ACL injuries normally take 6 to 10 months.
And I'm old, so it'll probably be longer.
It with the, I mean, and that's a no disrespect thing, but with the age gap right there, his age versus mine, he may heal in 10 months to where same injury same surgical procedure, I may heal in 7.
Good.
Or it may be vice versa. He may heal in 7 and it may take me 10.
Yeah, might. Don't know.
But that made no sense. But now, I said this the other day, Pandora's box is officially open.
Oh, God.
Wide open.
Yeah, wide open. McLaren, in a statement, said that Malukas had been, quote, unavailable for the entirety of the season to date, with no confirmed return date as a result of a left wrist injury, which occurred February 11th in a mountain biking accident. Malukas responded with a statement that I'll give him credit for. It was a very professional one. Said, quote, the past 3 months have been challenging. I felt privileged to have had the opportunity to drive for Arrow McLaren and regret that it never materialized. I would have loved to have continued representing the team and its partners going forward. They have been good, and I appreciate all they've done for me. I've done everything possible to speed up the rehab process, treatments, physiotherapy, strength training, but my recovery has taken longer than expected. We'll find out. Got a pretty cool-looking car to show you here. It's from AJ Foyt Racing, and their long-time partnership with ABC Supply will serve once again this month to help the nation's veterans. It's going to be a very patriotic paint scheme. Santino Ferrucci is going to support on the 14 car. Going to give some extra publicity to the group Homes for Our Troops. You can find them online at hfotusa.org. Again, hfotusa.org. May being Military Appreciation Month, it makes it all that much more meaningful. ABC Supply, AJ Foyt Racing wanted to take this paint scheme and use it as a way to raise, hopefully, $4 million in donations to the nonprofit organization. There is a donate section on the website for Homes for Our Troops if you'd like to be a part of it. For those concerned about how the money is spent, all I can go is by what the organization says. They state 90 cents of each and every dollar, 90% of everything raised goes to the programs and services for veterans. And over the 20 years, they say they've built or refurbished 379 homes for veterans and their needs. ABC Supply has also said they'll match the first $1 million in donations.
Good for them.
Very, very cool. And a good-looking car, too.
Yeah, it does look good.
I really like that. As of early this week, we'll take this in chronological order. Like Monday, Tuesday, Able Motorsports told Racer.com that, well, we haven't been able to confirm. We're still hoping, but we are not able to confirm yet that we're going to be one of the entries trying for a starting slot in this year's Indy 500. With them, it would be 35 cars trying to qualify. Without them, obviously 34. The problem? RC Enerson. Abel says that the Dallara chassis would be ready. Chevrolet engine arrives so they could match them up. No problem. The car's not going to be the problem. The hiccup is Enerson because of, well, sponsorship. Able Motorsports talked to Racer.com early this week, said, quote, it's down to RC. He's got a really good deal that he is working on, and hopefully it'll come together in the next week to 10 days. And he was asked at that time, what if it didn't? Well, Abel said this, quote, last time we talked, I said that we considered throwing in the towel but didn't want to, but we're probably considering it at this point. When asked what the timeline would be, he said, if we can't get something done in the next week, maybe week and a half, the project's going to be stopped. That's why we're being patient, really hoping RC gets the deal that he's working on put together.
And as of yesterday,
the team reported time has run out.
Yep.
They will not be in this year's Indy 500, so it'll be 34 cars vying for 33 slots, which still does mean that bump day has meaning. Some big name could, I'm not saying will, but some big name could find themselves on the outside of the Indy 500 looking in. We'll find out. NASCAR's got a charter program. Indycar has been talking about a charter program. What's the latest on that? We'll get you that information here as we get back into things. Plus, that will affect the thought that Prima Racing is ready to come into IndyCar. I mean, they're talking about coming in like next year. How would the charter system affect that? We'll deal with all that, and we'll get into some Formula One stuff when we come back, right here on CRN.
Racing Network.
Yeah, we are. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm Steve West along with Matt Nicholson here. Producer John be back next week. Racer.com reporting Penske Entertainment's expecting to announce the new IndyCar charter plan. The series would issue 25 charters to the existing teams. Can we just say there are 27 full-timers? 25 charters to the existing teams based upon their standings and the points. The intent announced that it would cap the number of starters at any particular race to 27, Indy 500 being an exception. The current number of full-time entries in the series, as noted. But again, there is interest. We reported it here before Alabama Speed Weeks here on this edition of the show. Prima Racing, which has entries in both Formula 2 and several other actually European-based junior open-wheel series, wants to come into IndyCar potentially as soon as next year. So how's that going to work? Well, the report adds that Prima's already been in touch with several IndyCar teams to gauge their interest in selling them a charter or two for the future. At this time, whether Prima comes in 2025 or not, they have plans for 2 entries. The 2 most recent Chip Ganassi entries would be the ones without charters currently, meaning Prima would have to come in strong because, let's face it, CGR, they're an 11-time IndyCar champion. They know how to build cars to run in the series, whereas Prima, yet no experience. But you are talking to Lara. They've got the deal already reportedly with Chevrolet. So the chassis is not the problem. The engine's not the problem.
Right.
Now you got to build out the car, which means you got to do that right. And then you got to find some drivers. Well, there's not going to be any shortage of high-profile drivers to choose from, at least potentially. We just talked about David Malukas. He is a free agent right now. Pending free agents, in other words, drivers who are going to be out of a contract at the end of this year, assuming that they don't sign an extension or sign with another team before the end of the year. Alexander Rossi, Christian Lundgaard, Rinus VeeKay. Not bad. Not bad. Is
fair.
Is it A-list? Maybe not.
A-.
Yeah. You could do a lot worse than any of those 3.
Yeah, I'd say A-.
Prima actually is already familiar with both Rossi and Lundgaard via their IndyCar CEO, Pierce Phillips, who has worked with Arrow McLaren and Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing in the past as well. So there may be a link or 2 there. We'll find out. And then there's some sad news out of the IndyCar world. The news came down Tuesday of this week. Wally Dallenbach Sr. passed away. Dallenbach Sr. was a versatile racer who would go from a respected racing career to an even more respected role as chief steward of IndyCar. Born Wallace Jacob Dallenbach, December 12, 1936 in New Jersey, he would race really just about anything in his early years before working up to IndyCar competition, where in a 15-year career behind the wheel, got 181 starts starting in 1965, 5 wins, placed second in the final points in 1973, which was the closest he would ever get to a title in IndyCar. He got his first Indy 500 start in 1967, and that started a string of 13 straight in the famed race, where he claimed a best finish of 4th. That happened twice, back-to-back years, 76 and 77, while driving for Patrick Racing. He was a teammate then to Gordon Johncock, who would later go on to win an Indy 500. Johncock himself called Dallenbach, quote, as good a teammate as you could ever ask for. It's actually quite a big compliment.
Very.
In addition to his IndyCar career, raced 4 times in what's now the Cup Series, 2 races in 1962, including that year's Daytona 500, where he finished 37th on the day. His best finish actually came in 1964, when he finished 13th in his home state of New Jersey at the Old Bridge Stadium. Number 1, who knew Cup Series, what we now would call the Cup Series, actually raced in New Jersey? And number 2, what the heck is Old Bridge Stadium? Go look it up. It's actually kind of a fascinating bit. After his driving career, Dallenbach stayed in the Indianapolis area, started working with the series, first as competition director, but quickly worked up to chief steward, where most drivers under his reign complimented him, saying he ruled with fairness but firmness. He retired from that role in 2004. During his time in that role, though, he's credited with improving the IndyCar safety program, also began IndyCar's non-denominational services for drivers and their families. Think about it, kind of similar to NASCAR's motor racing outreach program. He was still active in motorsports after he retired from IndyCar as president of the Colorado 500 motorcycle race. It's an event that raised over $1 million for its host town of Basalt, Colorado. This guy's been inducted in so many halls of fame. Let's give you a few of them. Well, actually, I think I do have all of them, and it's quite the list. He's been inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame, Pikes Peak Hill Climb Hall of Fame, Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, New Jersey Sports Hall of Fame, Eastern Motorsports Hall of Fame, Motorcycle Hall of Fame, and Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame. In 2003, he and his wife sold a ranch that they owned in Basalt, Colorado, moved back to his home state of New Jersey. She passed away there late in the year last year. Dallenbach himself passed away Monday. Reasons not given, but I will state this. He was 87 years old. He had a good, long, and respected life. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the friends and family of the Dallenbachs.
Absolutely.
All right, let's turn our attention over to Formula One here. And a silly season began early. Okay, and we noted this on the podcast in the fact that it was remarkably quiet to go from 2023 to 2024. 20 drivers in the series. All of them are still in the series from 2023 to 2024, and all of them are in the exact same seats that they had from 2023 to 2024. But Lewis Hamilton threw down an early gauntlet when he announced he was going to leave Mercedes at the end of this year and move to Ferrari. Now, a couple of other dominoes have fallen. Audi has made a move in advance of when they take controlling interest in what we now call the Kick Sauber or Sauber race team. They've signed Nico Hülkenberg away from Haas F1. Hülkenberg joined Haas F1 just last year without having had a full-time ride for the 3 years before that. And he's shown he can keep up with the field. He scored 4 of the 5 championship points that Haas F1 has this year so far. Haas F1 was contrite, understood it, said they appreciated Hülkenberg's contribution to the team so far. Look forward to completing the season with him and wish him the best in his future endeavors. As for Sauber, they are looking to the future. Reports have both their current drivers, Zhou Guanyu, and veteran Valtteri Bottas, maybe being released at the end of this year. Because other reports state that current Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz, you know, the one that's being displaced by Hamilton at the end of this year, also moving to the Sauber soon-to-be Audi team. As for Haas, there's no official word, but reports have them set up to sign Ferrari reserve driver Oliver Behrman. Behrman stepped in for Sainz when he had appendicitis early this year. You might remember that. And he finished top 10 when he filled in for Sainz at Saudi Arabia. That was, race number 2?
Yes. Yep.
So reports have them signing Oliver Behrman. But if you think about this, Sainz is not signed. This report states that a veteran in Valtteri Bottas, who has been a teammate to Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, is also potentially available. Not yet, but potentially. Zhou Guanyu, I'm not sure that's an upgrade. Valtteri Bottas may or may not be. Carlos Sainz probably is, with all due respect to Nico Hülkenberg.
Yep.
I'm not so certain I'm going to go pull the trigger that fast on Ollie Behrman before I start making some phone calls and seeing what else might be available out there if I'm Haas F1.
Who's to say they don't go after Sainz and Behrman?
Which is also possible because we don't know the future of Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah, I mean, that would... If you want some serious stability and somebody that has won a race other than Verstappen...
And has done so in a Ferrari, which is the engine you use at Haas F1.
I would, if it was me and I was Gene Haas and Ayo Komatsu, it feels weird to say that about Haas, but I would be going after Carlos Sainz.
Uh-huh. I think you got to make the phone call, at the very least.
I would go after Carlos Sainz, and dare I say, I would go after Valtteri Bottas as well. You put 2 proven race winners in your cars, and you can on a high level, extremely get a good gauge of where your program truly is.
Sure.
Because I don't think you've fully gotten a good gauge of where your program is since its existence.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Again, we note it. Carlos Sainz is racing for Ferrari this year. Haas F1 uses Ferrari engines.
Yep.
So he can come in and he can tell you, hey, your power's down versus what I was racing before, if it is. And if it's not, he can tell you, okay, here's the difference between the car that I was driving and the car that I'm driving now for you at Haas F1.
Exactly.
And the other reason I state this is because I honestly believe that within the next couple of years, this Andretti Global General Motors partnership is going to force the hand of the FIA, of Formula One management, of Liberty Media, of Formula One as a whole, and of all the 10 teams that are out there. And that means that Haas F1 immediately is put on notice as saying, hey, that's the other American-based team, and they're going to suck all the air out of the room. from us.
They are.
You better make the move. If you're this serious, as Gene Haas has said, as Gunther Steiner said as he exited, as Ayo Komatsu has said as well, that Haas F1 is committed to Formula One. Show it.
Do it.
Show it. Now. Don't wait. Do it now. Because the warning signs are coming up just overhead, and you can see it. You can see those flags before you crest that hill. Mm-hmm. And it's coming. So make your statement. Make it now. Then there's, this one was somewhat unexpected. Adrian Newey. That may not be a name to people who are familiar with Formula One, but not really big fans of it. But he's a well-known figure in F1 circles, legendary designer of championship-winning racers. He's been, no shock here, working with Red Bull for the past several years, helping the organization rebound to win 3 titles for Max Verstappen and 2 straight Constructors' Cup titles. He's now 65. Newey has informed Red Bull this is going to be his last year with that team. He will officially end his time with them in the first 3 months of next year. Exact date not given, or at least not revealed. So what's next? Retirement? Yeah, no. Unlikely. More likely, the in high demand people at Ferrari will try and help Lewis Hamilton win an 8th driver's title. Maybe he'll slide over to Aston Martin, could try and help Lawrence Stroll try to claim a title for that team. Or Matt found out something just this morning that might also throw the monkey wrench into the works.
Apparently, Mr. Newey himself has been in conversations and talks with none other than James Bowles at Williams.
You know, the team that has scored a big goose egg so far on this year.
And if he can take stuff that he knows at Red Bull and took it over to Williams and apply it, Sir Frank Williams is smiling down from above.
And then we go back to that report that we were talking about early in the show when we said Williams has asked for a bit of a dispensation for a kid who's now 17 years old to maybe race in F1 before he actually turns 18 on August the 28th. Mm-hmm. They know that things aren't going right over at Williams, and they want to fix it.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Logan Sargent's going to be the guy that's going to be left out.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, James Bowles is trying to do everything he can to put Williams back on the perspective map.
But whatever they're doing right now ain't working.
Granted, have the cars gotten quicker on a week-to-week basis? It depends. Like this week, they're in trunk for the sprint race.
Sure.
But overall, I'm going to say they've elevated from, let's just say, from a D- to C+.
Yeah. I'll give them that. Alpine has yet to show me that.
Alpine has went from D+ to F.
Yeah. And then there's Kick Sauber, but that's another story.
Hey, see what happens when you involve 2 people from the Chiefs? Oh, did I say that out loud?
Oops. While no actual date was given, again, there's been speculation about his announcement, why he's choosing to leave the organization, talking about Newey. Most of it surrounds the allegations that we have detailed here on the show about team principal Christian Horner. Newey himself hasn't said anything about that. Instead, he released a statement about his resignation that said, in part, quote, "I feel now is the opportune moment to hand the baton over to others and seek new challenges for myself." Horner was very complimentary of Newey, said, quote, "All of our greatest moments the past 20 years have come with Adrian's hand on the technical tiller. His vision, brilliance, that helped us to 13 titles in 20 seasons. 2 decades, 13 championships. Later, he leaves a true legend." No doubt about that.
Yep.
Liberty Media, since buying the commercial rights to Formula One, now going on a decade now. Wow. Really? Yeah. They've expressed wanting to push the season out to 24 races pretty much from the time that they bought in. And they admit that's a hard cap. Can't do any more, really. Some in the series think that it's already too many. Listen to some of the drivers. But it appears 24 is going to be the number for the foreseeable future, despite the interest that the series continues to draw from all around the world, according to F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali. Domenicali got to talking recently to media, made note that he has gotten interest from more than 35 race promoters who are interested in hosting a Formula One race, of which he said about a dozen actually could be considered serious contenders. ESPN is reporting that those serious contenders include potential races in places like South Korea, Thailand, a second race in China, South Africa, Rwanda, a return to Malaysia after their experience with Formula E, which was positive. Now maybe India could get into it. And then there's New York City and Chicago.
Where are you going to put a race in New York City?
Or Chicago, for that matter. Anyway, with all the new interest, but the year capped at 24 races, that means something's going to have to give. Formula One says they want to keep their heritage tracks on the schedule, said, quote, there is a provision that we need to make sure that the races need to be respected, but that doesn't mean that there is a duty to them. The world is evolving and the needs of everyone to push to be the best there is, and nothing is a given or granted for anyone. Of course, we want to push everyone to improve. That's our objective. So what's our limit? Because you think about it, we got 3 races here in the United States. This weekend, Miami. Later in the year, we're going to be back at COTA, then back at Las Vegas. Don't forget, we've got 2 other North American races that are going to be happening in Canada and Mexico City, right? So how do you gauge the interest in New York and Chicago? Could we host more than 3 races in the future? Domenicali responded, quote, it would be wrong. It would be wrong to go from 1 now to 3, as well as with Montreal, Mexico City, and Brazil in the Americas. So already the calendar looks full there. I don't expect to have more races there, to be honest. So in other words, if we're going to go to New York or we're going to go to Chicago, one of the current North or South American races is going to have to go away.
If that was to happen, I could see it being Brazil.
And that would cause a riot. Think about
That it
Brazil.
would. That
Think
it
about Brazil. Brazil's been the home of a couple of world champions.
Yeah.
Oof. I got to admit, I'm pretty happy I'm not in the position of having to try and figure that one out.
No
I really
kidding.
am. Really
kidding.
am. Ferrari. We're so used to Ferrari in red, aren't we? You believe Ferrari's going to put some blue on? Actually, more blue than what you might think.
Yep.
Talk about it when we come back on CRN. on this hour, we're going to be joined by Matt Murphy from Nashville, going to talk a little F1 because he's very much into the political side of things. I will say that. So I'm sure this came of some interest to him. Plus, we're also going to talk about Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway because he is right in the backyard of that, and he has gotten to be pretty involved since he moved in radio from Birmingham up to Nashville. So we'll be talking to him later this hour. Ferrari, we're so used to them being in red, and let's face it, everybody knows Ferrari red. We all know it, right? Well, they're not going to be using all of their traditional red this weekend when we run the Miami Grand Prix. Got a picture here from Ferrari. The team is brushing off some of their traditional red on their racers in favor of a throwback to a blue that they ran before, well, many of us either on or listening to the show were even born. The new for the U.S. blue colors are being named by Ferrari as Azzurro La Plata and Azzurro Dino. Harking back to colors used by the race team back in 1964 for the final two races of that year. And they've also been used by some Ferrari racers fielded that year by the now defunct North American racing team. Look them up. Don't have time to go back into that.
Nart.
Yeah, really. Azzurro La Plata is the lighter of the two blues. It's also the official national racing color of Argentina.
Huh.
Ferrari driver and Argentinian native Alberto Ascari sported this on his jersey and his helmet in 1952 and 1953. Azzurro Dino's the more darker blue color. That was used in 1964, as you can see on the car right there. Several drivers actually opted for that color on their driving suits, most recently, like Clay Regazzoni did it in 1974. Now, some of this is because it ties in well with the new partnership that they announced with Hewlett-Packard, or HP. Means that the team name is now officially Scuderia Ferrari HP. You'll pardon us if we just continue to call them Ferrari. Being as HP's official colors are blue and white, now you're kind of seeing why they're going through some of the process of throwing back to the past with the blue look. When Ferrari revealed the look that you see on CRN Live on YouTube because of Ferrari, thank you very much, it was more really evolution than revolution. There were some people that thought the entire car might turn blue. Yeah, no. For those of you that can't see it, there's more blue than what's been on there in a long time, but really what it kind of boils down to is blue highlights atop the side pods, got blue on the wheels along the halo, the engine cover, got blue on the front and rear wings, denoting the rear wing has the HP partnership showing on it.
They could have left the blue off of the wheels.
Yeah, they could have.
They could have left the blue off of the wheels.
It is weird to look at that blue on the wheels.
Jeez.
And it was weirder to look at it because I watched qualifying yesterday and the end of Q2 and Q3 for the sprint. And it's weird to watch it. Yeah, it stands out. I'll give them that. But it's weird to get used to it.
Yeah.
Ferrari officials said that the drivers are going to be wearing all blue fire suits, but didn't show them. I did see those all blue fire suits with a big HP logo on it, and that'll take some getting used to as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the recent, not this past week, but the week before episode of Cross Flags, you and I, Matt, talked about a possible new points ladder system for Formula One where the top 12 finishers would score points as opposed to the current, which just includes the top 10.
Right.
Positions 1 through 7 would remain the same as they are now. Then 8th place would score 5 points and then drop 1 point per position down to 12th. 12th would get a single championship point, right? F1 Commission met during our time away from this show, the full 2-hour show, and decided to table the topic for now. To change the point system would take a majority vote and a simple majority. I mean, sometimes you need like the whole entire group or 9 of the 10 anyway. In this case, you only need 6 of the current 10 teams to vote to change the system. If it's 5 and 5, nope, it don't change. Gotta have 6. Well, the FIA stated that after a meeting where they initially proposed it, the FIA statement said, quote, it was agreed that further analysis of proposed changes was required with a proposal to be presented by the F1 Commission meeting in July. Now, motorsport.com is reporting that the debate is not just about extending awarding points to the top 12, but past it, up to and including a number that would cover the entire field. Time will tell.
No, I don't think that's going to work.
Time will tell.
Yep.
For those of you who are intrigued by or just flat out love Formula One here in the U.S., other than us here on the show, there isn't really much of an option for you to get your news and or coverage because even ESPN rarely gives a whole lot of news, despite all the races airing on ESPN. ESPN2, or in the case of this weekend, ABC. But you're about to be in luck. There is a new streaming service that, importantly, is subscription free. You don't have to pay for it. Set to launch here in the U.S. for F1 fans, and it is appropriately being called the Formula One channel. Shocker. Straight and to the point. The channel will show replays of races from F1, F2, F3, and the F1 Academy, as well as historic races and popular Formula One related documentaries. They're missing on an opportunity to do, even if it's only a 30-minute show, once a week.
Right. That
would give you all kinds of details on the news of the week. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing they're missing. We're available. Mm-hmm. The channel will launch on services here in the U.S. this week, includes Pluto TV, Amazon Free VTV, and the Samsung TV Plus. Again, while subscription free, to pay for it, they will air commercials. Okay. Been there, done that. One of the things that we're going to talk to Matt Murphy about, right? I'm just going to tease it here. I'm not going to get into it because we'll get into it when we talk to him. This Andretti Global F1 story. It now involves the U.S. Congress. Huh? Why is Congress getting in on it? Well, a member of the legislative branch sent a letter to Liberty Media CEO Greg Maffei regarding, quote, concerns with apparent anti-competitive actions, unquote, trying to keep Andretti from competing in the series. That's why we're bringing Matt Murphy in. One of the reasons. Stick around. We'll get back to it. All right. We already know her best as the founder and the owner of the all-female race team Peretta Autosport. But now, Beth Peretta, owner of an Indycar team, part-time, is about to become full-time the vice president of sporting for Formula E. Okay. In this role, she'll oversee all the sporting and championship activities for the series, develop existing relationships with series stakeholders, all while looking for new sponsor and market opportunities, and most importantly, Formula One, looking to attract new teams to the series. Formula E already has 11 teams. Already. Which is one more team than Formula One. And Formula E says they're looking for more. Formula One, are you looking? Formula One, are you noticing at all?
No.
Just saying.
Don't think they are.
Peretta not only began her own IndyCar race team that has competed in the Indy 500, she's been an executive with a number of car companies that includes the Volkswagen Group, Aston Martin Lagonda, and the Fiat Chrysler Automobile Group before they got folded into Stellantis. While at FCA, she was actually the director of marketing and operations for SRT, the street and racing technology division for the Dodge division of Chrysler. So she is pretty well versed in the automotive world.
No doubt about it.
Go for it. Formula E officials have been planning on beginning a new support series, which would feature all-electric minis as the racer of choice. The support series was to be called the Next Gen Cup, NXT Gen Cup. It was set to debut a couple of weekends ago when in Italy, and it's been canceled. Not that weekend's racing. The series. Done. Statement from Formula E said simply, Next Gen's participation in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship has been canceled for Season 10 due to unexpected constraints faced by the support series. Okay. So the next question is the idea dead? Could it be revived for Formula E's 11th season next year? Nobody's talking. I didn't know they made all-electric minis.
That makes two of us.
All right. Now that we've said that, moving on. ABT Cupra, looking to improve their fortunes, signed a deal with a new Lola Formula E team. They're going to partner with them and their drivetrain supplier Yamaha. They'll begin using those Yamaha-developed powertrains next year. The team has scored a low 6 championship points this year between their two drivers compared to Jaguars. Well, 100, almost 200 points on the year so far. All this means that ABT Cooper is going to be leaving Mahindra-provided drivetrains that they've been using this year. And again, to show you how bad things are for the former Formula E title contending operation in Mahindra using their own drive trains, Mahindra has scored nothing. You get nothing, said Gene Wilder and Young Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. You get nothing. Good luck the rest of the way. NASCAR, Hall of Fame. I still got this quasi issue. And I'm not saying necessarily that the drivers aren't worthy of Hall of Fame consideration, but I do wonder if they should be voted in now versus
later.
Some of the people that have been there a lot longer, you know? The newest nominees for the Hall of Fame. They have added Greg Biffle, Randy Dorton, Jack Sprague, and Ray Hendrick. And the landmark nominee list now includes Dr. Dean Sicking. The ballot once again split between Modern Era and Pioneer. Modern Era has Biffle on it, and in alphabetical order, Neil Bonnet, Tim Brewer, Jeff Dorton, Carl Edwards, Harry Gant, Harry Hyde, Ricky Rudd, and Sprague to choose from. Biffle's won 19 races, won titles in the Xfinity and Craftsman Truck Series, was named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers just last year. Okay, the resume's there. Dorton. Randy Dorton helped make Hendrick Motorsports' engine program pretty much the envy of the stock car world, leading the way to 9 titles over NASCAR's top series in his time while he was there, but he was taken too early because he died in that 2004 plane crash near Martinsville Speedway. You might remember that all too well. His legacy lives on, however, in an engine program that has directly claimed more than 500 wins in the top levels of NASCAR. Sprague, of course, if you know anything about what was first the NASCAR Super Trucks Series, later the Craftsman Truck Series, and what is now, again, the Craftsman Truck Series, Sprague was really a founding driver in that series. He got into it in year 1. He won 3 series titles, 1997, 1999, and 2001, 28 race wins and just under 300 starts. Plus, he's got more than 130 starts in what is now Cup and Xfinity as well. Of the new ones, Dorton and Sprague go first. But I'm not sure I'd put him on this year. Sprague, maybe.
For the first time in the existence of this show, me and him agree fully on who should win first. Typically, we've got one or the other's got one different.
Mm-hmm.
I say that on this basis. If Maurice Petty can get in as an engine builder for Petty Enterprises, and that's how I'm going to word it, Petty Enterprises.
Sure. Yeah.
Randy Dorton has full credentials to get in as the engine builder for Hendrick Motorsports that started him.
Yeah, if he hadn't been taken in that 2004 plane crash, we could be talking about him to this day still being the head of the Hendrick Motorsports engine program and him being that guy responsible, again, for 500 wins across the top 3 series of NASCAR.
Or him being in the same position that Jeff Andrews is in now, which Jeff Andrews took over for Randy Dorton when Randy Dorton lost his life in that plane crash.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry. The guy's built a legendary program over there. It's hard to overlook his bona fides. And I get it. You got Neil Bonnet. You got Tim Brewer, Jeff Burton. You got Carl Edwards. You got Harry Gant, Harry Hyde, Ricky Rudd. None of them are not worthy of it, except for maybe Jeff Burton. That's a personal opinion. Sorry, guys.
No, it's my personal opinion, too.
I'm not trying to belittle the accomplishments of any of them, but I look at what Dorton did in the short time that he was there. And good grief, the legacy is, you can't deny it.
You can't deny it, but Ricky Rudd and Harry Gant, you're putting them in the same category as the basis you've got Mark Martin in.
Yeah.
Harry Gant's only got 4 wins to his credit in his entire career.
Now, granted, they all came in a row.
I'm not knocking the man by no means. It bottom 3, Burton, Gant, Rudd in no particular order. Well, Burton at the bottom, Gant and Rudd in no particular order.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to say the next one up is going to be Neil Bonnet.
Yeah.
That one's is
and we
not,
say that
delinquishing what he's done by no means.
We say that knowing the fact that we want to get the entire Alabama gang into the Hall of Fame. I mean, we've got both Allison brothers, we got Red Farmer in there. I'd love to get Neil Bonnet in there. But when I look at his resume compared to the ones that are on the list and the ones that have been added to the list, I'm not sure I can put Neil Bonnet on there this year.
Right. But Dorton, I'll say it this way, from a mechanics /crew chief side, between Dorton and Tim Brewer, I give Dorton the edge.
Okay.
I give Dorton the edge.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Between the driver's side, my top two is Sprague and Greg Biffle. Greg Biffle has Xfinity and Truck Series title.
Yeah, and 19 wins in Cup.
But I give Sprague the edge. Slight edge.
And mainly because if it hadn't been for guys like Sprague and Ron Hornaday Jr., who's already in the Hall.
Hornaday got in on those credentials in Truck Series, and Sprague's is really close.
And again, if it hadn't been for those guys like Hornaday and Sprague, the Truck Series might not be as successful as it is now.
Bingo.
Pioneer ballot. Hendrick, Banjo Matthews, Ralph Moody, Larry Phillips, Bob Welburn. Oof. That's difficult.
To me, there's only one.
Let me give you the bona fides for Hendrick. Ray Hendrick joins the list from his career in the modified division. He was known as Mr. Modified, actually. Running what became his trademark Flying 11. It was always a big number 11 on the side of the car with a stylized bird wing around it. While numbers are somewhat sketchy, Ray Hendrick is said to have won about 700 races in all the former modified and late model sportsman divisions. Again, not saying he's not worthy. Not saying it at all.
Yeah, because you've got the basis of Richie Evans and Jerry Cook, modified drivers.
I'll tell you who I went with here. I went Ralph Moody.
We're 3 for 3. There's no question it's Ralph Moody.
Okay. Cannot vote for the Landmark Award, but the Landmark Award nominees include holdovers Alvin Hawkins, Lisa France Kennedy, Dr. Joe Mattioli, Pocono Raceway, Les Richter, and now Sicking. Sicking, in case you didn't remember or know, was the man most responsible for the development of the safer barrier that's now mandatory to all NASCAR oval tracks. So that's what his bona fides are. He'll get in. Sooner or later, he'll get in.
I think Alvin Hawkins will go in this year, being the first flagman in NASCAR.
I could see that.
First flagman.
Yeah. Wouldn't bother me at all. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to throw out a name from the past. Remember the name Patricia Driscoll?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Her legal problems continue. We'll detail that. We'll tease once again what we're going to be talking to Matt Murphy about in the last segment of the show and continue talking about Cup Series news and however much we can get in before the end of the show. Stay close. CRN rolls on right after this break.
more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show here as we are into the final segment of giving you the news. Then we're going to be joined, we're hoping, by Matt Murphy to talk a little bit of U.S. Congress and Formula One. Talked about that letter that they sent just a little bit ago. Plus, what's going on up in Nashville. But first, Kurt Busch's old girlfriend, Patricia Driscoll, continues to have her legal troubles in the wake of the duo's split. Now, Driscoll, who was once accused of Busch of domestic violence, got tossed due to lack of evidence, by the way, was also found guilty of misusing funds that were donated to the Armed Forces Foundation. That is a group that now no longer exists for all intents and purposes. Driscoll's conviction, however, got overturned on a technicality. But court records show she agreed to lawfully admit to willful failure to keep proper financial records and, quote, made personal purchases from eBay using an AFF credit card, unquote. So she admitted to it, offered up a guilty plea to failure to keep proper tax records for another company that she ran called Frontline Defense Systems. On Wednesday, May the 1st, she left a federal courthouse quickly after getting 2 years probation, ordered to serve 240 hours of community service, and paying a $75 special assessment, $25 for each of the charges leveled against her. She got off easy. To Patricia Driscoll.
That's an understatement.
Go away. Go away.
It's an understatement.
Oh, let's see what else we got here. Last week, if you watched the Dover race, Cup Series, Ryan Preece was the first car out because of a fire issue. It's one that Preece doesn't really understand fully. He said right after the race, quote, it was completely unnecessary. Early in the race, Preece noted smoke inside the cockpit of the Stewart-Haas Racing number 41 Ford. The team said they thought it was a problem, somewhat similar to his teammate Chase Briscoe that had experienced Saturday during qualifying, which was rubber buildup. It was burning. On lap 39, under caution, the team jumped into action, attempted to clean the rubber out from under the front axle area, but when racing resumed, so did the smoke. So the team called Preece down into the garage area, determined the 41 car was not going to be able to continue on in the race. Preece said afterward to media, quote, I felt like I was on fire. The first 70 laps, just trying to push through it, and then it got so bad that I couldn't put my hands on the wheel. I was worried that an oil line or something was going to melt and that the whole car would get engulfed in fire, and I don't want to be trapped in there having that happen, so I pulled off. Whatever happened, it was completely unnecessary, and we can't afford days like this. And Preece is right, because he has had a very uneven beginning to his 2024 year. So what exactly happened? Well, Preece declined to say. He only noted, quote, I'm not going to be the one to say what happened, but it wasn't necessary. It could have been prevented. First driver out of the race, he was credited with last place, 37th, one single championship point on the day. And here's the thing. Preece's 41 team has not commented officially. Crew chief of the 10 car, Stewart-Haas Racing teammate, Drew Blickensderfer, did. When he made his weekly appearance on Fox Sports 1's NASCAR Race Hub Wednesday, said the fire was, quote-unquote, self-inflicted. He added this, quote, that was the bolts between the headers and the collectors keeping everything together. We had some issues there amongst the teams on our side. So in other words, it wasn't just a problem on the 41. Apparently the 14 at least. They were not installed correctly, Blickensderfer added, and it was allowing the collectors to become disattached, there's a good word, from the headers, kind of fall on that rocker box, and that caused an issue. Somebody's trying to do their job too quick.
Boys, a simple bolt check and blue Loctite works wonders.
Yeah. Somebody's doing their job too fast and not doing it right.
That's the one of the main crucial parts of the engine. If that collector comes loose from that header and that car was to backfire and suck air up in the motor, that's a blown motor. Had it happen. Luckily, I didn't lose a motor, but I've had one backfire like that.
There you go. Preece's Stewart-Haas Racing teammate Noah Gragson having a better year, something of a breakout year, actually. Set to add some racing to his schedule as well. In addition to his full-time run in the number 10 Cup Series Ford, he has been signed to drive several races for Rhett Jones Racing in both ARCA and Xfinity competition. And entering a number 30 Ford Mustang in the Xfinity Series on a technical alliance with Stewart-Haas, Gragson's set to run his first race for the team at Charlotte later this month. He'll also race Nashville, Michigan, in the Labor Day weekend race at Darlington. His ARCA slate wasn't announced immediately, but he's raced for Rhett Jones Racing before, several late model events, including the 2023 Snowball Derby in Pensacola.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is your new ride for additional races for one Frankie Muniz.
So, and I got to ask this question. And I get it, a lot of drivers, Kyle Larson most notably, They do a lot of, what do you want to call it, extracurricular racing outside of their Cup Series main ride. But with Noah Gragson having this kind of breakout time here, he really seems to have adjusted very, very well to this 10 car and everything that's going on at Stewart-Haas Racing. Is it a good idea for him to go and deal with other teams?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're not splitting his attention too much?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna take the driver's point of view on that first.
No, it's not going to hurt him.
Okay.
At all, especially if you've got a technical alliance with SHR.
Yeah. Again, not a whole lot of crossover between Xfinity and Cup now with the severe difference in the cars, but still. Behind the wheel experience and he's what, 23? 22?
I think so, yeah.
Somewhere in that area? The more experience he can get behind the wheel, the better off he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Just double checking on it. Then we got former Stewart-Haas Racing driver Kevin Harvick. He's set to be returning to Chevrolet, which he didn't run in since he left RCR for all intents and purposes. I get it. When he first came over to Stewart-Haas Racing, they were in Chevrolets, but you know. Fox Sports NASCAR analyst has been tapped by Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports to assist them during the upcoming All-Star weekend, while Larson's going to be working in Indianapolis. That's right. Remember, Larson's doing the double. Friday, May 17th in Indy is called Fast Friday. It's a practice day. And since Larson is going to be the first driver since Kurt Busch a decade ago to attempt the double, he said he doesn't plan to miss an Indy 500 practice session. That also means, however, that he's going to have to miss the Friday practice at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race that weekend. Mm-hmm. And qualifying. Okay. Harvick overheard Larson note that he would skip the Cup Series time in favor of time in IndyCar, and then added, quote, when Rick Hendrick called a couple of days ago and said, hey, I need a favor. I know when the conversation starts like that, usually you got to say yes. I appreciate them, Hendrick, calling, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday will be a little bit of a weird situation as well. Larson notes that is actual qualifying day for the Indy 500, so he's going to be in Indy during the day, so that means that might miss the heat races. But here's the thing. Because of wins last year, he's locked in to the All-Star race. What this means is that if he misses the heat races, he just starts at the back of the pack, which, truth be told, you miss qualifying. You're starting at the back of the pack anyway. So what does it matter? Kevin Harvick getting in the car is just to set where they're going to pit.
Yeah, and then
because that won't change regardless of driver change.
Yeah, help him get the car dialed in, considering it's a brand new asphalt up there.
Yeah.
You know.
While nobody is guaranteed to start in the Indy 500, he wants to make sure that he gets that. He promises he'll be back in North Carolina in plenty of time to run Sunday, yes, Sunday's All-Star race. But last time we had a full practice at Indy, you might remember Kyle Larson posted the second fastest time of all 27 entries.
So he is a threat for the front row.
He's a threat for the Fast Six, which that gets contested on Sunday. What if he were to make the Fast Six? Larson said if he were lucky enough to have a good enough car to be in the Fast Six, he'd probably skip that session, noting that there's only really a couple hours between that session and the beginning of the All-Star race, and you and I worked it out. Flight time alone from Indy to Charlotte is, you said, an hour 45-ish?
The closest regional, let's call this word regional airport to Wilkesboro is Statesville Regional. Mm-hmm. From Indianapolis to Statesville Regional, I think, is right at an hour 40.
Okay, so you got an hour 40 there, plus you got to get from the Statesville Airport to North Wilkesboro, which you said was
It's about a 40-minute drive, give or take, down 421, because you go a little piece up 77, and then you hit Highway 421 and go from the northern side of Statesville over to Wilkesboro like you're going over to Boone, North Carolina.
Okay, let's presume that you could half that by taking a helicopter jump from Statesville to North Wilkesboro.
Which is very, very popular.
That's still 20 minutes.
Roughly 20.
Then you got to get from Indianapolis Motor Speedway to the airport, whatever the closest airport is. You figure that's probably a 10 to 20 minute hop then. So now you're talking about hour 40 flight, Indy to Statesboro, 20-minute hop, Statesboro Airport to North Wilkesboro, 10 to 20 minutes. See where I'm going? He may not make it in time. So he says he'll skip out on the Fast Six if he makes it. Oh, darn. That means that he would skip out and he would start sixth. He'd start outside row 2 because they start the Indy 500 3-1.
Closest airport
Darn.
to IMS is Indianapolis International. There's no regional private executive airport close by. It is Indianapolis International.
So, yeah, that's probably, I would say, that's an easy 10-minute hop. Maybe closer to 20, depending on what they've got to do to work with incoming and outgoing flights that are already there.
Let's see. Yeah, hop, skip, and a jump. Maybe 10 minutes down 465 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 exits to where it looks like where the FBO side is. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is a minimum from boarding a chopper at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to getting off a chopper, presumably, at North Wilkesboro. That's a 2-hour, 10-minute deal.
Give or take, yeah.
That's too close for comfort. So, yeah, worst comes to worst, he starts 6th. Oh, darn.
Shucks.
Eligibility is not the issue, says Trackhouse Racing. The lack of a car is the problem. What's the problem? Shane Van Gisbergen. He is eligible to run this year's All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, but Trackhouse Racing and Colleague Racing have both admitted that neither team has a spare car ready, so they don't feel like they could prepare one in time for him to get into the race. So despite the fact that he got the win last year at the Chicago Street Course, Shane Van Gisbergen is not going to be in the All-Star race.
Got a disclaimer here on that one.
Okay.
You work the deal out. There is a Chevrolet car open that he could jump in to run. That would be one BJ McLeod and Live Fast Motorsports, because you cannot tell me that Trackhouse nor Colleague would not help prepare that car for him to drive in it.
Mm-hmm. Or go talk to RCR. Got a 33 car over there.
There you are.
Colleague has said that they had to make a choice between Van Gisbergen, who is signed to Trackhouse Racing but has a full-time Xfinity Series entry for him in collaboration with Trackhouse. While they have a car, that car likely is going to put AJ Allmendinger behind the car, because Allmendinger, who is signed to Colleague Racing, is also eligible because he won last year at Charlotte. JTG Dougherty, no such problems with an extra car because they're a single car operation. And they got Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in it. And they like him to the point where they've signed him to a contract extension that'll keep the 36-year-old Daytona 500 winner in the number 47 for the foreseeable future. It is a multi-year deal. Can't complain about that for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Talked about Legacy Motor Club driver Eric Jones, involved in that wreck at Talladega, caused a compression fracture in his lower back. He missed the race at Dover. Corey Heim filled in. Corey Heim kept the car clean, which is really what you're looking for a rookie who has little to no Cup Series experience.
Mm-hmm.
Corey Heim will get another chance this weekend at Kansas. And they will put Eric Jones back in the car at Darlington.
Which makes too good a sense considering he has 2 wins there.
Yeah.
Too good a sense.
But good luck to Corey Heim. And Richard Childress Racing, speaking of that 33 car, apparently they like their Australian supercar drivers. Last year, he put Brody Kostecki in the 33 car at the Indianapolis Road Course. Now we got reports coming out that RCR is set to put Will Brown, who is the current Supercars points leader, in the number 33 for the race at Sonoma. Okay. Guess we'll find out. One little bit of Xfinity Series news here. 2024 Dash for Cash series came to an end at Dover last weekend. Anthony Alfredo, Fast Pasta as they call him, claimed the fourth and final $100,000 prize. Alfredo, one of the 4 top finishers at Talladega. He was the top finisher of the quartet at Dover. Bested Riley Erbst, Jesse Love, and Ryan Sieg. So Sieg won the $100,000 bonus at Talladega when he got by AJ Allmendinger in those final 2 laps to be able to do that. So congratulations to those winners. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Matt Murphy. We'll have a whole lot of stuff to hold over here. Play around with that and see how much we keep. I will say this, Matt DiBenedetto, he will be in the Viking Motorsports number 38 car in a cooperative effort with RSS Racing for the remainder of the year. That's a good call. CJ McLaughlin just was not doing the job. Nope. So they made that call, and that's a good move on them. So there you go. When we come back, we're set to be joined by Matt Murphy from WTN Super Talk 99.7 in Nashville to talk Nashville and a little F1 with the U.S. Congressman.
Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show here. I'm about to turn things over to you for a moment because I'm going to try and make a phone call. Because it turns out we had a miscommunication. He thought I was calling him. I thought he was calling us. So I'm going to try and make a phone call. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Touch on the Xfinity series here just for a few minutes.
Well, and I want you to hit on something else as well. Oh, wait a minute. This might be him. Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, is this Matt Murphy?
This is.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Doing great, guys. How are y'all?
Hey, we appreciate you having the chance to join us here. It's been a while since you and I have had the chance to sit down and talk racing. It was something that you and I have been threatening to do, and I use that term carefully, for a long time, to just sit down and talk about racing. But I thought with things that have been going on here recently up in Nashville that it would be very appropriate to bring you in. But before we get to that, I want to start with this. Because I'll be the first person to admit, I know a little bit about politics, but you know much more about it than I do. And when the fine folks up at the U.S. Congress decided to send a letter to Liberty Media, which is the commercial rights holders to Formula One, talking about concerns with apparent anti-competitive actions trying to keep Andretti Global from being in the series, that raised an eyebrow to me, and I thought, wow, we could do two things at one time by being able to talk with you. Have you had the chance to kind of look into this story a little bit and know what the letter kind of reads?
I have, Steve, and you know, it really is where the world of entertainment or sports meets politics when it comes to setting up these kind of monopolies in the United States with regard to sports ventures. So my reading of it is, and you know me, I am loath to have the government intervene in almost anything,
sure.
Right? But in this case, I don't think the Congress is threatening Formula One at all. They're just saying, hey, wait a minute. You know, an American interest has expressed the desire to be a part of this organization, and we give, in our country, great concessions to this organization with regard to the competitive nature of the sport, you know, when it comes to other leagues or other racing organizations trying to horn in on their territory. So I think they're right to question exactly what it was about Andretti Global that was so off-putting that Formula One, while they said they wanted a couple of additional teams, it's my understanding that they said, yeah, we're fine with up to 12 teams. When Andretti comes forward, they say, no, thank you. And I'll be very interested how Congress pushes on this and if they're willing to push enough to make Formula One move on it.
Well, and I also found it interesting that the letter from Congress to Liberty Media talks about how Cadillac is planning on doing a much bigger move into the European market to try and sell. And they seem to think that it might have something to do with GM's attempt to reintroduce themselves into the European market. I'm not sure whether that holds a whole lot of water, though.
Well, I don't know about, you know, and I do know that GM's presence gives a little more weight to what Andretti's trying to do. I understand that Formula One, you know, I don't know the behind-the-scenes backroom conversations that are going on. I don't know if this is somehow an anti-Andretti thing or if they don't believe that Andretti will be competitive enough until GM gets their property up and running and gets their race team up and running. But you could be right, Steve. This might have much more broad implications with regard to getting into these markets. I mean, I don't know if it's me being sensitive on the Formula One front, but it seems almost kind of anti-American generally with regard to how they've been handling it.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And, you know, Matt, my co-host here, Matt Nicholson, and I have both basically said, you know, if Andretti comes in and they stub their toe for the first year or two and they lose every race that they're in and, you know, are never really competitive even to grab a championship point, what the heck do they care?
Right.
You know, that's kind of what you want. You don't want them to be that competitive right off the bat, do you?
Well, and two, I mean, they seem to dismiss Formula One in some of their language that they sent to the Andretti team. They seem to dismiss the American market and the opportunities that they have with the Andretti name in the American market. It's as if they're just kind of shooing America away. Go, we don't really need your eyeballs. We've got the rest of the world. Well, I feel like this market is a big deal to them, and I disagree with them. When they say that Andretti doesn't help them, they help Andretti, I disagree. I think it would be almost a wash in that respect.
Yeah, I think so too. And the other thing before we go on to talk about your backyard up in Nashville is that to hold off on the whole idea, waiting until General Motors is ready until, 2028, to come in, they said that they didn't feel like Andretti Global could bring a 10% increase in the value of Formula One. Well, other than Ferrari, which has been there ever since the very beginning of it, I could probably argue that not one single current team in Formula One could bring a 10% increase in the value to Formula One by just coming into the series.
Was Aston Martin bringing a 10% value to
No.
Formula One? I mean, I do think you're hitting on it, though, Steve. When you talk about 10%, there are 10 teams. They revenue share this stuff, and I think the amount is like $200 million that Andretti would have to literally give to the other teams to share that revenue. They don't want to share the revenue.
Yeah.
I think that they've decided that they don't want to split it up 11 ways as opposed to 10 ways with regard to how the money moves around.
But you think about how much money could come in because you've got two American-based teams. Haas F1 is there, but Andretti has also said that we are promising to put one of the two cars, we're promising to put an American-born driver in that car as well. You're going to give the American public a chance to root for an American driver for an American team in, an us against the world situation. It's going to grab the attention of the people in this country. It will. And I think that that's where Haas F1 has kind of stubbed their toe. They haven't gone out there and tried to cater to that. They kind of talk about the fact that we're American-owned, but they've never tried to put an American-born driver in. Andretti will, and all you got to do is give the American sports fan something to root for, and they'll pay a lot more attention to it.
There's no question. I mean, and I hate to make the comparison because obviously Americans built motorsports. I understand the Europeans did their part too, but we were so integral in building motorsports. But I think soccer is a great example. If you field a good team, Americans will root for their team, especially if they feel like their flag is behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, all you got to do is witness the Olympics every other year.
No doubt.
Be it winter or summer.
Yeah,
No doubt about it. We're talking with Matt Murphy, Super Talk 99.7 in Nashville. Before that, you were down here in Alabama in the Birmingham area for a long time. But since you've gone up to Nashville, your interest in racing kind of took on an extra little bit of importance because you have gotten involved in the situation with Nashville Fairgrounds, which we have been detailing here on the show for a long time. And with all this situation about Nashville Fairgrounds, what from your side of it is the latest going on there? Because there are people that are still trying to figure out whether that track even has a future.
Well, I think it does, Steve. All of your political pieces have to be put into place in order for this to happen. And I think the folks at Speedway Motorsports and Bristol are being very, very careful about how they play their hand. They don't want to press on it too hard. And just a little bit of my backstory on this. I mean, Steve, I think you were around in Birmingham or certainly in Alabama when Birmingham BIR closed down.
Yep.
All too well, yeah.
Situation. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar type situation. So when I got to Birmingham in the early 2000s, I'm like, man, I'm sorry I missed the closure of BIR. I felt like maybe I could have been a voice to help. Well, I come to Nashville, and here's almost the same situation. The track is owned by the city, and it is in disrepair. They still hold races there. I think they have 10 racing weekends a year, but the track needs a tremendous amount of improvement. Bristol has come in and offered what is just an incredible deal to my eyes. It will cost the taxpayers no additional money. They will lease the track. The city will engage in the bond that will pay for the renovations, but Bristol agrees over the period of 30 years to pay the entire nut back. So it seems a no-brainer. Sadly, there is just a basic anti-racing mood somewhat in the city. I think that's overwhelmingly balanced with I think the overwhelming mood is in favor of the track. As a matter of fact, about 12 years ago, they did a referendum, and 71% of the city, and the city's more blue than red, and frankly, I think we can look at those terms when it comes to racing fans, but the city overwhelmingly agreed that they wanted to keep racing at Nashville Fairgrounds. So it's an incredible deal. We got a new mayor last year. I've spoken to the mayor about it. Freddie O'Connell claims that he's for it. There's some other interests involved, some big money people that are looking at that property. So there's a lot of politics involved in the deal. But I'm still very, very hopeful that the deal is going to go down a little bit later on this year. I think that Bristol's being very patient and should be very patient because they don't want to lose out on the opportunity to bring NASCAR back to the center of town, which is very exciting for me.
Yeah, because, I mean, it may be called Nashville Superspeedway, but it's really not in Nashville. It's
Lebanon.
Yeah, I mean, it's southeast of the city proper itself, so you got a little bit of a drive there. Now, IndyCar's there, not this year because of construction going on, which I'm about to get to, for the Tennessee Titans Stadium, so they're moving that race to Nashville Superspeedway as well. But, you know, we've been up there, had the chance at your prompting, as it turned out, a couple of years ago, to go up there and be up there on the call for the Superstar Racing Experience race at Nashville Fairgrounds. That place was packed out. People are willing to go to that track.
Oh, yeah.
And then you think about the people that are in that neighborhood who moved into a neighborhood with an existing racetrack and they're going to complain about the noise. You moved into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the track has existed, and I don't want to bore you guys with the history, but the history is incredible. The track has existed since 1904. It was a dirt track until 1958. They paved it then. From 1958 to 1984, as you guys probably well know, NASCAR ran there, and just every great in the history of NASCAR ran at that track up until the 1984 season when they left it. It's a very, very different speedway. It's much shorter. It's just over a half mile. And the fact that Bristol owns both tracks lends itself. They feel like they're going to keep a race annually at National Superspeedway, but the idea is that every other year that the NASCAR boys, the Cup boys, will come and they'll race on the half miler, which is, you know, part of what NASCAR seems to be trying to do is to diversify the tracks and give the fans a different type of experience. And I don't think the fans have anything like Nashville because it's in the middle of it's literally set right in the center of the city, which is something different than really you're getting anywhere else in the sport.
For sure.
Again, talking to Matt Murphy from Super Talk 99.7 out of Nashville, talking about Nashville Fairgrounds. And yeah, I think that's actually a perfect thing because you get the chance to run a couple of different kinds of tracks and, you know, have off years from one to the other. I think that's a fantastic idea. And based upon the plans that we have seen from Speedway Motorsports Incorporated / Bristol, that would be ideal.
Or even the talk that's been happening here recently that a date may go away from Bristol and keep Bristol at one date per year. It would make sense to take that date, move it to the fairgrounds.
Sure.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's right. They're very, very similar styles in terms of how they would run those tracks. But the renovation is very exciting for somebody that's a racing fan, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of the plans.
We have.
But it's also exciting for the community. I mean, the community loves this idea, and for those few people that I feel like are bought and paid for that would suggest that they don't want the noise, this plan would actually abate the noise by over 50%. They would put noise abatement in, Bristol would, that would dampen the noise in the 10 races that already exist there. They wouldn't add any additional dates. It's a complete no-brainer, and it's only politics that's getting in the way of the fact, politics is what is preventing this from happening today, right now. And sadly, it is just the reality.
Yep.
And I know that you just did it, but I want you to go back over the money situation because the city of Nashville, in other words, the taxpayers, they're on the hook for a pretty good amount of the new Tennessee Titans Stadium. They're not going to be on the hook at all for anything planned to go on at Nashville Fairgrounds in the long term?
Well, it's even better than that, Steve. I mean, right now, the city, according to the Metro Nashville Charter, this is the founding document of the Metro Nashville region, which is all of Davidson County, which happened in the early 1960s. They're required to hold auto racing at the fairgrounds. It's in the charter. So not only would Nashville save a tremendous amount of money on the renovations, they would be off the hook for the repairs. The annual repairs are almost $10 million a year, and they'd be off the hook for all of that if they would sign the deal. The only thing they would be on the hook for is the possibility that the Bristol folks don't cover. I think the Bristol folks are required to cover 80% of all of the total cost of anything, any overruns or whatnot. So anything that ran over a certain amount, the city might be on the hook for a few $1 million. But for the most part, they're going to save about $8 million a year.
Yeah, this thing is a no-brainer.
In addition to getting a brand new shiny racetrack that everybody can be proud of.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Good night, almighty. It's amazing that they continue to drag their feet, but yet they go so quickly on a new stadium that, I was just at that stadium a couple of years ago. it's not in that bad a shape. I'm not certain why they need a new stadium.
Well, no, I mean, they're spending a lot of money in that part of town. They want to rebuild that East Bank area. And part of the push behind those that are backing the deal, to include Jerry Caldwell and others at Bristol Motor Speedway, would be, look, we're trying to anchor this part of Nashville, this side of town, in addition to the soccer stadium. It's a component that I haven't brought up. I'm loath to do it, but John Ingram is the owner of the soccer club in Nashville. It is well known. The scuttlebutt has always been that John Ingram wants the Speedway for a parking lot or condominiums. It is true that his billion-dollar influence is creating part of the lag behind getting this deal done. Hopefully, most Nashvillians see through it, let their city councilors know where they are on it. The mayoral election obviously delayed it to a certain degree, but everybody that I talk to around the Fairground Speedway feel like it's coming to a culmination and ultimately a vote by summer or even early fall. The Bristol folks seem very, very calm and composed as to their offer. They're just letting it sit on the table and reminding Nashville that they're here. You know, we're here when you're ready. We're here to do this thing. But it's not going to be around forever, and that's what scares me. Is that if they drag their feet too long, it is possible that Bristol will just pull out of the deal, and then we're left with another dead racetrack in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Matt Murphy, Super Talk 99.7 in Nashville. Thank you so much. First time we've had you on. Let's not make it the last, okay?
Let's do it again, guys. Thank you.
Sounds good. Appreciate you so much, Matt. Matt Murphy, again, Super Talk 99.7 out of Nashville. Appreciate him taking the time to kind of give us an update on what's been going on up there, because, you know, we can do so much, but we're really reliant upon reports from other aspects.
Yep.
And so we appreciate him taking the time and having a little fun talking about Formula One
Yeah.
and the U.S. Congress as well. That was a weird little wrench in the works. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. After 3 weeks, kind of neat to get back into the saddle. We'll be back again next week, we promise, with producer John in tow. He says, I'm not going to promise that. I'll say that he's promising it, okay?
Yep.
Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the racing this weekend. We'll be back next week. Talk about it all once again right here. And don't forget, middle of the week, Wednesday, Crossed Flags, racing podcast presented by CRN. Wednesday, middle of the week. That's why we call it Crossed Flags, middle of the week. Get it? Y'all have a great week. We'll talk to you Wednesday and next Saturday right here on the Championship Racing Network. As I said, enjoy the racing. See ya.
See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.